This is Sean with Bob Solomon Stories, and I'm speaking to a gentleman that's been friends with Bob basically since college in the dorms. How you doing, Ed?
Good. How you doing?
So it's Ed Connely. So you guys met originally in the dorms. You remember where exactly in the dorms and what that situation was?
Oh yeah, 1979. I lived on the same floor as Bob in Van Meter, and Bob was an incredible guy. Everybody was drawn to him, and it was funny. A friend of ours, Wendy Kessler, who had previously been in engineering classes with, was talking about this gentleman she knew and how we need to meet him, and she had no idea that I lived on the same floor with him and I was already friends with him. So John Leon was my roommate at the time, and then Bob and I ended up the next year living together, and we got a house in Puffton. So it was really a lot of fun. He was a great person to hang out with, and did a lot of great things together.
All right, so here's a shot of you guys. Was this a 79? Is that Wendy there?
Yeah, that's Bob there on the right. It's Wendy Kessler. That's me in the middle. This was put this in here because this was in 1979. We're at UMass here in Southwest, obviously not studying. It's a Friday or Saturday night, and blowing off some steam. And Bob was always the center of fun.
All right, so let's talk about some funny things that maybe happened in the dorm. A lot of stuff gets weird in the dorm, especially when you guys are young and you're free and you're having some fun. So what's maybe some dorm stories that you remember with Bob?
So we'd come back, from a little drinking beer and that, and everyone was always be hungry, and we'd order pizza. And I remember this one time, we ordered a bunch of pizzas, and they all showed up, and they were so hot you couldn't even touch them. It was like incredible, right? And Bob came over with a beer and just poured it all over them and said, "Now they're good." That was the beer on the pizza. That was a pretty good story.
That's hilarious. All right, so here's the second shot we're going to touch on, and it looks like it was a great time. And there's a lot. That's a high percentage of women compared to the men at the table. So what's the scenario there?
Okay, this is John Leon's wedding, my first roommate. And then you see Bob on the right. This was 1982. We had finished with college, but these were some of the people from Van Meter, because John's wife was also on that floor. So this was a great get-together after college. The woman there in front of Bob, it was a big swimmer at UMass. She was on the swim team.
So that was somebody that Bob was dating at the time? Is that what you're kind of referencing indirectly? Or
no, he's just friends of ours. And then you can see John's wife there in the middle, with the bonnet and stuff.
So let's talk about Bob and the ladies. Let's talk about how they would perceive Bob when they would meet Bob, and how he was in general with the gals.
Well, Bob was a lady killer, and one thing about Bob was he was very perceptive. He could read people so well. And that's one thing that was really amazing about him. And I think he understood people at a very early age, very perceptive, and very, happy-go-lucky, great guy to be around with.
All right, so here's a shot with you and Bob, and who's the guy with the beautiful mustache?
This is George Hajar, who was one of his classmates in electrical engineering. They later went into business together with the immersive virtual reality technologies they had in Richardson, Texas. This is at, I believe, the 1989 inauguration of Bush, the first Bush. And Bob and his father had a nice little tour of the Capitol, and we had dinner there. It was a nice event.
So describe, and I'm going to bring this up just so we could touch on it. Here is Bob's family, and there's Jerry and his mom and all the brothers and sisters. So from your times of, let's say, meeting his father, how would you kind of describe his dad and similarities with Bob?
Oh, wow. His dad was a Korean War veteran in the Marine Corps, and the thing was, Bob, besides being happy-go-lucky, underneath all that Bob was basically a Marine. He was a very disciplined person. And when we lived together, he even got on my case sometimes when I was slacking and stuff. But he was always good-hearted about it. He was a very disciplined guy. I remember the semester I met Bob, he invited me up to his house during winter break. And his father had arranged corned beef and cabbage, and really welcomed me into the house. And it was really nice. And I still remember going to Sippy's with Bob. And over the years, I made a bunch of trips up to the Glens Falls area. And I lived about 2 hours south in Western Massachusetts. So it was really nice to see another part of the country that was so close to me.
Well, here's some sexy shots of you guys on the beach. Where was this?
Oh, this is Cape Cod, and this is, I think, around 1989. You can see Bob is pretty buff there, and that's my younger brother, the skinny guy. And then you can see Sean Mahoney and then Bill Day there, who were friends of Bob's. And this is going back to the Cape Cod days where Bob was quite a windsurfer. I mean, before he got into sailing, you don't see much windsurfing around, but he'd get up on that thing and he'd disappear for hours and then show up again. I mean, he really loved the sail. And even before that, he spent so much time with these windsurfers. It was really incredible.
All right, so let's talk about the sails. So obviously, you kind of dedicated almost 30 years to the Fagawi. Here's a shot of all the boats that he'd have to be up against and whatnot. How would you describe his transition from windsurfing into sailing?
He got into the Fagawi, I guess, in the early 90s. I went with one, I think, when they had the Snow Search. That was a sailboat. It was funny. It was Killington, Vermont was the title on the hull, and then Snow Search. There was a bunch of them had it. And I remember, I think it was 94 or 96 Fagawi. We raced against that. Ted Kennedy was out there, and I think we came in second or first on that race. Really was a lot of fun. And Bob slowly introduced me to sailing. I didn't start taking it seriously until about 10 years ago, but I sail now. I went to Greece, and it's all because of Bob. He instilled that, and he said, "Hey, you can do this." He was always a very optimistic person and a go-getter.
So what were some of the things that happened when you're actually sailing? Some specific stories that are worth mentioning?
Oh, I remember one Fagawi. We left from Newport, and then we go to Falmouth. Then we go to Hyannis, and each of these is a day trip. And then we went to, then we'd have the race to Nantucket. And then we'd have, a lot of people would disappear, and you'll see later in some videos, it's me and Bob bringing one of the sailboats all the way back to Newport in a storm. And Bob was an incredible sailor, and I didn't really appreciate it until I started sailing myself. But his navigational skills, a lot of people couldn't do what he did. And if you can see in the video, we're in a light storm, visibility's bad, and we're making it right in, through that area of Buzzards Bay and stuff. And there's a lot of wrecks there, and there's a lot of obstacles. So it's some serious business, and Bob can handle that.
All right, so here's a shot with you. Here, give it a second here. There we go. So who are the guys with you, and where was this?
Oh, this is another Fagawi trip with Sean Mahoney and the crew. And you'll see in the next, they all went and got a house in Newport, Rhode Island. And they made up this really cool business card. And on the back, it had a map to the area. And you'll see on the next slide,
here's the garden. The garden.
So this is back in the 90s before, cell phones and stuff. So, you had John Sherborne, Clint, Reggie, who's in that picture, along with Sean and all their backgrounds. Bob was the Hurricane Force windsurfing instructor because I think the state police ran him off Cape Cod one time when he was trying to windsurf, during Hurricane Bob. And on the back of this, they had a map on how to get to their place in Newport if you were walking around. So I thought this was kind of a cool gimmick they had come up with. And
So
this,
essentially, the card's purpose was to get people back to a party.
I think so. I think so.
That's pretty funny. All right, and this next one here, I know you mentioned that he had gotten into the virtual reality world. So why don't you kind of explain what the story was for that?
Well, in the night, Bob started a company with George Hajar and several and Ben Wilhelm, and they developed some hardware that was incredible. They were the beginnings of virtual reality that we all take for granted now. And they were in North Richardson, Texas, and they did a lot of incredible work, and they came so close to making it. There was some issues with some of the other people there. Won't get into that, but I just wanted people to know how he was on the cutting edge of technology with these machines. And I used to see these machines later in arcades all over the place. It was really an incredible accomplishment that he achieved.
So obviously, I know that you kind of said off camera, but that, some of the guys that they were partnering up with basically kind of took the plans essentially. How did that really affect Bob of putting his heart and soul into something that's going to be new technology? How do you think it really affected him when it didn't go the way they thought it was going to go?
Well, I think it was hard on him. It was something he didn't really like talking about, and Mr. Hajar helped me out there, so, let sleeping dogs lie. I think, he made a run at the brass ring and he almost got it. A lot of us don't have the courage to do that. And he went all in. And I think, he came this close. And I think you'd see those plans and the hardware they developed was really incredible.
All right, so here's a shot of him behind the helm. And do you happen to remember which race or what situation this was for this exact photo?
This is one of the Fagaways, and this is one of my favorite pictures of Bob. All right, and it's sort of like the videos you'll see. This is Bob, courageous, optimistic, and this is the picture I always have of him, and I always remember him.
So what other stories would you like to share? Obviously we just kind of went through a few different photos, but what are some of the other stories you'd like to share about Bob?
Oh, wow. I knew him for 45 years, and he was always, he's like a big brother to me. His family was great. He was, I used to talk to him. I had just talked to him, I think a Saturday before he passed, like trying to get the Fagawi going and say, hey, when are we going to do this again? They had some issues after COVID and stuff. So great person, the epitome of optimism. The glass is always half full versus half empty. I think he had so many friends. He was so charismatic, just a great person, and we're all going to miss him.
So what would you like to say to his family?
I know this is tough, and we're all going to miss him. It was just, a bright, shining light.
Did he ever give you any advice or any situations that he was really there for you, that he stepped up?
Oh, yes. Yeah. He got his degree in electrical engineering, and I sort of struggled through mechanical engineering, eventually graduating. But he was always very helpful, encouraging, a real positive person.
So what about, I know you probably got some more funny ones you could tell about college. What are some other fun situations? You guys road tripping, going out to the coast, some things, maybe before you graduated or when you were graduating. What are just some of those situations that?
Okay. Well, graduation weekend, we decided to go streaking. I instigated it. And of course, poor Bob got caught. I didn't get caught. He always kind of needled me about that, but the cops let him go. It was sort of fun. We always had, we, I remember when we went in the grocery store, we would, I think our budget was like $20 a week. We'd get a bag of potatoes. He always liked Brussels sprouts. And then we'd get a 12 pack of Old Milwaukee that was like $2, so that would be our Friday, Saturday night fun. And then there was one place called Mike's Restaurant where they gave free food. We used to eat there for Friday. That was part of our meal plan.
So I was, and you guys were basically 4 years around each other, all through college.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years, and then afterwards, hanging out with him and stuff in Springfield.
Did you go back up to Lake George?
Yeah, and then even when he was in, I ended up in the Army, and then I ended up down in Washington. But his dad was here, so whenever he came to visit his dad, he'd give me a ring, and I'd come visit his dad's place at Army Navy Drive. Very nice people. Really appreciate it. Over the years, I'd see him a lot, and then we go to Fagawi, and of course we touch base on the phone, at least once a month.
Yeah, well, it was really hard for a lot of people here in Indianapolis too. I mean, he was here almost 20 years, and he helped a lot of veterans be honored. He got me reacclimated into sailing and took me on the Fagawi, and he was just there. This coming Saturday is the memorial, but he was there for a lot of people, and I think he really affected people a lot more than what they realized. And now that he's passed, it's kind of hard, but I think a lot of his memories really will live on. And I appreciate you sharing today. Is there anything else you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to say to the family?
No, I mean, you're exactly right. He was a major part of my life, and now he's not here, and I feel the loss. I feel it's sort of like, wow, I'm on my own now.
I understand.
But I gotta appreciate what he did, and try to remember, the things he said to me, that and try to live that way. Because I was always half empty guy. He was the half full guy. So,
right.
I'm trying to be more of a half full guy.
He always was a positive soul. He'd always, but anytime he'd see me, he'd go, "Shawnee," and I'd go, "Bobby," and that was our greeting. No matter where it was a yell of each other's names.
Yeah.
Just put a Y on the end of it, but It was kind of funny. So, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just apologize for not making up to the event, but I appreciate everything.
Okay.
Thank you very much for this.
Yeah, you got it. All right, Ed. Well, listen, just stay on the line, and I'm going to close this out, and I thank you for sharing. I know Bob's family will appreciate it.
Thank you.